Okay, we'll start with this. Well, Hearn wants Joshua Fury, but denies negotiations have begun. He was quoted as saying, "I had boxing journalist Mike Kopinger ask me about 2 weeks ago and said, I heard there's been negotiations for Fury versus Joshua. I said, no there isn't," stated Hearn. He said, "I know there is." I said, "You can write what you want. I'm telling you there isn't." Then yesterday, Thursday, Steve Kim phoned me up and said, "I heard there's negotiations between you and MTK about Wilder stepping aside." I said, "No, we would never have a conversation with Wilder about stepping aside. That's a contract between Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. So you're telling me there's absolutely no negotiations? What there is there's going to be a conversation about when and where that fight could take place. Right now, we've had a couple of offers from a couple of different sites about that fight taking place. When we started originally speaking to the sites about this fight, we all had December in mind because AJ was going to fight in June. Wilder versus Fury was going to be in July. And then we were going to do it in December. Now, the only way that fight could take place in December is if Wilder steps aside. But don't forget, we have a contract with Pulev, and Fury has a contract to fight with Wilder. That's what's happening. We've had a couple of approaches from the Middle East. Obviously, Matchroom's partners, Skills Challenge Entertainment, are in Saudi Arabia, and they're very keen to have the fight. We've had a couple of other territories as well. At the moment, it's just talking, fielding offers from different sites. But to make the fight next, as in no Pulev and no Wilder, it would take Bob Arum and MTK to speak to Wilder to arrange a step aside, and then come back to me to let me know it's possible. And then myself and Bob speak regarding the Pulev fight. So at the moment, it's all pie in the sky until we know that both those fighters would be willing to step aside. I can't imagine in a million years that Deontay Wilder would be happy to let Anthony Joshua have a crack at being undisputed world champion and to delay his rematch in a world of so much uncertainty right now. It would look so weak. It would be like me going up to AJ after the Ruiz fight and saying, "Listen, someone's going to give you $10 million to step aside." He would have punched me straight in the face. I could have gave him $100 million to step aside from the Ruiz rematch and he wouldn't have taken it. Shelly Finkel and that lot don't want AJ to get his shot at anything, or me to get a shot at anything. So I don't see it. What I do see is Joshua versus Pulev, Wilder versus Fury, and the winners fighting in the spring or summer of 2021. However, if there is a way to make it happen at the end of this year, we're absolutely all in. It might make the sport more desperate for big fights, but the way I'm looking at it at the moment is the promoters are all competing against each other. But I look at it now that really we're competing against other sports because when we come back, there's going to be so many sports, so much activity, so much scheduling issues, sponsorship. Everyone's going to be scraping for everything, and we're going to have to come back strong because we were one of the few sports that went into lockdown with momentum, whereas other sports have been dwindling for years. I think it would be great to come back with a bang. Fans just want any boxing at the moment, but to come back with a massive event would be great. The bigger issue is generating the appropriate revenue when there's no gate. Until a gate returns, it's impossible to make Wilder versus Fury. It's impossible to make Joshua versus Fury. The Middle East wouldn't want to put the fight on behind closed doors. It's not a financial thing, it just doesn't look right. I think this Fury versus AJ fight is the biggest heavyweight fight of all time. I think at the moment, everyone is panicking a bit too much. Hurry up and get back to it. When this all happened, I was saying, we need to get back as soon as possible. We'll do it in May, all right? It won't be in May. It must be in June. Now we're in July. July for us is 100% the target, but it's got to be right, and we don't want so many restrictions being in place that it ends up being a shit show. We have to wait a couple extra months. It's not ideal, but we want to get back in the arena as soon as possible. Now, for those of you that have been following this channel a while, do you recall when I questioned Mike Kopinger's quote-unquote sources and his journalistic integrity? Do you remember after the Errol Spence versus Sean Porter fight, 2 days later this guy comes out with pay-per-view buys? A thing unheard of in this sport. Usually takes a little longer than that for you to get a number, put a number on where a fight is tracking. Usually those numbers aren't released to the public, at least after, maybe a week or something like that, whereas this guy, fight takes place on a Saturday night going into a Sunday morning, and on Monday, this guy's already got pay-per-view buys. You remember when I talked about that?
Links in the description.
Do you remember how weeks later, separate set of numbers in a Boxing Scene article with Fox's Bill Wenger, how those numbers were not in keeping with Mike's initial set of numbers?
Do you remember that?
That Mike Kopinger's initial set of numbers seemed a bit inflated. It's almost like somebody rounded up to make it seem like more pay-per-views got sold than they actually did. Because weeks later, the numbers specified in this article were off by a couple of thousands, couple of 10,000s, maybe 30, 40, something like that, you know?
What's going on?
And essentially what I'm getting at is, what passes for journalism these days in boxing really isn't journalism at all. You just got a lot of people that are in a hurry to get a story out there, whether the story is true or not, whether the information is verifiable or not. I think that is the case here when it comes to Mike Kopinger and these blurbs, these rumblings of a Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua undisputed heavyweight title fight being underway, that here today the fight is being negotiated, when it's what I told you it was in my previous video, and what I tell you in my previous video. There are conversations happening, there are preliminary discussions happening, but nothing concrete, nothing finite, nothing that indicates that's going to be the very next fight for those fighters. In all likelihood, Joshua's gonna fight Pulev the way he was already gonna fight Pulev, and Tyson Fury's gonna fight Wilder the way he was already gonna fight Wilder. That the pecking order, it really hasn't changed.
It's common sense.
Look, boxing fans are fucking idiots. And the journos, they know that. They know that boxing fans are far too lazy to do all the legwork, read up on all the information, the available information that is out there, to get the best picture of what's actually going on. This is a service that we here on the Relay provide. We actually pull in all the information for you to give you the clearest picture of what is going on. But the journos, back to the journos, they know that, you know, so long as you get a story out there, people are going to click on it, and you know, you're going to make your money, whether the story is true or not. This is prevalent when it comes to the YouTube boxing community. You have any variety of YouTube channels that claim they're covering boxing when really what they're doing is enticing boxing fans with their own versions of clickbait. Truth itself is far more mundane. If you were expecting Joshua versus Fury to be the very next fight for either of those fighters, you're either very gullible or very impractical, or both.
We're in the thick of a global pandemic. Governments around the world close their doors, advise their citizens to stay at home as to not become infected with the coronavirus. So, how much more clear does it need to be that these are not ideal conditions to stage such a fight?
So, like, what are you, a fucking idiot?
Huh?
What are you gonna do now? You're gonna start assigning blame? You're gonna play the blame game?
Oh, it's Eddie Hearn's fault. He's protecting Joshua from Fury. No, it's Fury.
Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Because you know that's how these guys' minds work. I mean, you do realize that, right? That when these petulant children can't get what they want, when they want it, they will resort to all manner of bitching and moaning and crying and complaining and blaming. I mean, I've seen it. I've already seen it. I've seen people complaining that it's Anthony Joshua and Eddie Hearn's fault that the Fury fight isn't happening. Oh, yes, I've seen it.
I've seen it.
I've even seen people go as far as saying that the only reason that Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua want the fight in Saudi Arabia is because they want to evade VADA testing. This, like many cockamamie theories, holds no water when, hey, genius, you do realize, right? Tyson Fury's the WBC champion, ain't he?
Yeah.
Backed by Top Rank, a major promotional outfit.
Yeah.
That's not enough for you to know that there's going to be VADA testing. There's going to be anti-doping testing of some kind if Fury makes it to Anthony Joshua. Did you forget about the clean boxing program?
Huh?
He's the WBC champion.
You forget?
An Anthony Joshua fight would be an undisputed title fight, emphasis on title fight, and there would be VADA testing via the clean boxing program, whether the fight's in Saudi Arabia, America, or the United Kingdom. Regardless of where you stage the fucking fight, there's going to be VADA testing. I find it even more curious that Tyson Fury's fans would be all hung up on VADA testing when, isn't it your guy that got popped in 2015 for a fight in 2014 with Christian Hammer, the Wild Boar stuff? So you could turn around in 2020 like the fucking genius you are and try to accuse Anthony Joshua of being on PEDS?
Wait a minute.
Well, you got a question. You're so hung up on PEDS, why aren't you hung up about the ones Tyson Fury was on? I mean, if you're going to be suspicious of anybody, it would make sense that you'd be suspicious of him, since he actually did get popped for performance-enhancing drugs, as opposed to Anthony Joshua, who so far has come out squeaky clean. I don't know what the future holds. I'm just saying that if that's a hang-up for you, if that kind of stuff bothers you, why doesn't it bother you that Tyson Fury got popped for performance-enhancing drugs?
Huh?
I mean, you're sitting here complaining about Anthony Joshua, but he never got popped for nothing, and he gets tested by both UCAT and VADA.
He actually gets tested more than Tyson Fury.
No, I know what it is. You're suspicious of everybody, except Tyson Fury. But Tyson Fury actually did get caught with something in his system, and you make no light of that. You spend no time on that. You don't cast an air of suspicion over him.
And this is what passes for boxing talk these days.
These are the kinds of people that other people get their information from. It creates an environment to where the truth is not paramount so much as the timing of the rhetoric, the timing of the conjecture to maximize reactions, maximize profits. I mean, that's what's going on. And I've seen this. I have seen this already in the YouTube boxing community, in the boxing groups, and on Twitter. I've seen these people. I've seen these individuals. How Tyson Fury's fans could sit there with a straight face trying to cast an air of suspicion over Anthony Joshua.
Right?
Tyson Fury actually did get popped by UCAT, and looks like Martin Carefoot, looks like he tried to shake him down. I mean, I told you guys I never believed Tyson Fury's story, that while Tyson Fury's story has nothing to do with the shellacking that he gave Deontay Wilder, and it doesn't. He got tested by VADA and he came out clean. While those two things have nothing to do with each other, I never believed Tyson Fury's wild boar story in 2015. What? You did?
Ha!
So if you're gonna sit here crying and complaining about PED users or guys who could be on PEDs, one would think that you'd make the association between PEDs and Tyson Fury, since Tyson Fury actually got caught with PEDs. But I digress. So, don't blame Tyson Fury for the undisputed heavyweight title fight not happening next, as that would make no fucking sense.
It doesn't.
The same applies to Anthony Joshua, because before the COVID-19 pandemic shut most everything down, including boxing, that wasn't going to be their next fight anyway, and I specified as much in my award-winning video regarding Deontay Wilder, the rematch clause he so exercised. Link to that video is also in the description box. This wasn't going to be the next fight, folks. COVID or no COVID. Step aside or no step aside, because Wilder wasn't going to step aside. Much as me or you would have liked him to. We've talked extensively about why he's not stepping aside, why they're going through with this thing, so what fucking sense does it make blaming it on Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua? Oh, because you thought that was gonna be the next fight. You and all your fucking wisdom. Pardon the fuck out of me, but in case you're not aware, there's a global pandemic going on that prevents mass gatherings of any kind.
Around the world, my love.
And these ain't the ideal conditions for that kind of fight. And before you go blaming money-hungry Eddie, because he's the only guy concerned with money in this situation, right?
Right.
Bob Arum, they'd be happy to give this fight to the fans for free.
Yeah.
In your mind. I mean, that must be the way things work in your mind. If you think that the gate, and being able to have a gate in the first fucking place, that must be how your mind works if you think that Bob Arum and Tyson Fury aren't just as, if not more concerned with the gate than Eddie Hearn is. They both want to make money off of this thing. I mean, you do realize that. All these aforementioned parties, all of these moving parts have the same goal. They want to make money. But how can they make money when this kind of fight isn't allowed to draw the crowd that it would if we weren't in the thick of a global pandemic?
How?
I mean, I tell you to use your head, but the sad part is, I think you are. And this is the best you can come up with? I've seen these kinds of talks when it comes to Fury versus Joshua. I've even seen these kinds of talks when it comes to Lomachenko versus Lopez. And I'm thinking to myself, what fucking rock are these guys living under? If those fights ain't going on right now, you know, call me crazy, but I think the global pandemic and the widespread government shutdown of governments around the world, that could be the reason
That we
aren't seeing those fights and aren't about to see any of those fights. I think that would be the culprit. I think that would be the reason. I mean, right now, everyone has had to adjust their day-to-day lives to what's going on around the world. And somehow, for these particular set of individuals, it's gotten lost in the sauce that things cannot proceed as planned until it's safe for individuals to not just come outside, but hold mass gatherings and stage these kinds of big cards, because in case you're not aware, the whole idea behind staging a big card is because it draws a big crowd, which thereby results in big revenue. Big revenue that the fighters want, that the promoters want, that the networks want. I mean, what do you want, a crash course in boxing?
Christ!
What do you need? What do you need? You need a Harvard degree to figure out that you can't have big fights right now? Big fights like Joshua versus Fury or Lomachenko versus Lopez? You can't put two and two together on your own? You need a member of MIMSA to come down?
Huh?
Something like that? You want me to get Dr. Fauci on the phone and explain it to you? Is that what you want me to do?
Huh?
Truth is, I shouldn't have to. The truth is, you should be able to discern this yourself. But you can't because you're an idiot.
No.
Idiots.
No.